G7 foreign ministers meeting in Japan are pledging to uphold the international rules-based order. That coming from Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi as he and his colleagues from the group of 7 wealthy democracies meet in the Japanese resort town of Karuizawa. Russia's war in Ukraine and increased Chinese assertiveness in Asia are also themes at the meetings. Here's more on the tone host Japan has set.
And the international community is now at the history's turning point. So we will firmly reject any unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force or Russia's aggression against Ukraine, as well as its threat of use of nuclear weapons. By doing so, we will demonstrate to the world the G7's strong determination to uphold the international order based on the rule of law.
All right, so let's get more context on this from Yuichi Hosoya. He's a professor in international politics at Keio University in Tokyo. Professor, Japan's Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi has talked of, quote, upholding international order based on the rule of law. Why did he feel this is a point that needs to be made at a G7 meeting 1 year into the Ukraine war?
Right. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has been saying that we are now in the historical turning point. If Russia wins the war, this means that international order based on the rule of law will be seriously damaged or destroyed. In that sense, I think that the Foreign Minister Hayashi has been saying that it is really important to look at international order by linking European war with what will happen in East Asia.
Are all G7 nations united in their approach to this principle?
I think basically, yes. The atmosphere in Karuizawa, where G7 foreign ministers meeting now convened, is very good. Basically, they share common understanding that Russia should be defeated and international order must be sustained and consolidated. In that sense, I think that we can see some solidarity among the G7 summit meeting members. But the point is that recently French President Macron visited China. And I think that China has been trying to create some kind of a gap or decoupling among the liberal democracies. And we should avoid such strong attraction by coming from China in that sense.
I think it's worth pointing out what Emmanuel Macron said. He said Europe should avoid, quote, crises that aren't ours. And he was obviously referring to the situation over Taiwan, which leads to the question of, is President Macron himself undermining the G7, a group that his country is a part of?
Basically, I think that the German Chancellor Scholz has already mentioned that we should avoid decoupling of the global economy. And I think basically Japanese government understands it and support that idea. The point is that Taiwan is a serious issue. And Chinese government has been saying that China is willing to integrate Taiwan with or without military force. In that sense, we always need to share common understanding about how to respond to this problem, because in a few years, maybe we will see a serious problem surround Taiwan. In that sense, G7 must maintain the solidarity to respond to the crisis in time, future crisis in the Taiwan.
How much of an issue is Taiwan, or for that matter, Chinese assertiveness in the region for the G7?
Basically, we all welcome Chinese economic growth, and we all need to link with Chinese economic growth. We welcome it. The problem is that Chinese government has never denied the possibility of integrating Taiwan without military force. So in that sense, we need to show that G7 has maintained very strong solidarity, and any effort to change the status quo by force should be avoided. And this is one of the strongest message that Foreign Minister Hayashi has been saying during the foreign ministers' meeting in Karuizawa.
Right. Stay with us on the line, Professor Hosoya, because I'd like to talk about a rival meeting to the G7 that took place in Moscow on Sunday, that between Russian President Vladimir Putin and visiting Chinese Defense Minister General Li Shangfu. While there, Li promised to have closer communication between the two countries' militaries and to strengthen strategic cooperation. Here's what both men had to say.
The main focus of my visit this time is to implement the consensus reached between you and President Xi in Russia last month, and to consolidate the relationship between the two militaries and to promote practical cooperation between the two militaries. Ties are improving very well on all tracks, in the economy, in the social, education and culture areas. And we are working equally actively on the level of the defence ministries. We regularly share useful information. We cooperate in the field of military and technical collaboration.
Professor Hosoya, how is this increasing military and strategic closeness between Beijing and Moscow being seen in Tokyo?
Well, there is no doubt that Russia has been trying to be closer to China because Russian government has been facing a serious problem of the lack of sufficient numbers of weapons. In that sense, Russia has already imported weapons from both North Korea and Iran. But of course, they need much stronger weapons coming from China. But China has been refraining from doing it. So one of the stake is whether Russia can get a strong support from the point of view of military weapons coming from China. But in the last half year, I have seen some kind of ambivalence of Chinese attitudes to this issue. While China has been trying to create much friendly relationship with United States, European countries, and Japan in the last half year, at the same time, China has been understanding the value of being close to Russia, because if something happens surrounding Taiwan, China undoubtedly needs a strong support coming from Russia. So this is one of the reasons why China needs strong military cooperation with Russia.
Specifically on the question of China, Japan has a deep trade relationship with China, but also serious maritime disputes, not to mention the China-Russia closeness that seems to have developed over the past year. How is Japan dealing with this clash of interests?
Well, I think in the last several years, both Russia and China have been more isolated among the leading powers. But at the same time, the two powers are trying to get a closer link with the global south. By having much closer link with the global south countries, I think both Russia and China can avoid to be a minority in international community. Japan needs a stronger trade with China, of course, but at the same time, Japan needs a stronger and bigger trade with India or some other countries of the global south. In that sense, if China and Russia can have the global south countries, leading global south countries with them, it would be a serious problem for Japan as well. So in that sense, it is necessary for Japan to be a friendly country to China while trying to avoid a crisis happening in this region.
I think this is a question that is asked quite a lot here in Europe as well. How do you trade with a country like China, against whom you're also building defenses in the event that Chinese assertiveness turns to war?
In this region, most of the countries have a very close economic link with China, and we don't deny it. So we need to maintain very close economic relationship with China. But at the same time, we need to find some kind of boundary between some of the sensitive high cutting-edge technologies and the other area of products or economic deals. So we need to try to avoid any vulnerability by providing a cutting technology to China, or by being a part of supply chain in this area. In this way, we are trying to be wiser by distinguish some of the different sectors in our trading relationship with China.
We'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you so much for joining us today, Professor Yuichi Hosoya from Keio University in Tokyo. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.